We begin with a stunning report that says America's education system is failing African American boys.
This year, they have noted a sharp increase in attacks on Jewish residents here.
For America's poorest public school districts, hiring good teachers can be a difficult task.
They lurk in every aspect of our society.
A hate crime is a hate crime is a hate crime.
Countless cases of injustice, yet a limited number of people willing to work out solutions.
A veteran St. Louis police officer dropping a bombshell today. He says there is blatant racism in the department and no one's doing anything about it.
What we need is a new generation of young change agents.
We're going to want to stand up, speak out, and take action, and bring our community together and work on the issues.
Cultural Leadership is teaching teens the skills to bring about these changes. The organization started in 2004 in St. Louis for African American and Jewish high school students, two ethnic groups which historically worked together to forge the nation's civil rights laws. Today, Cultural Leadership is open to all curious, courageous teens, regardless of religion or race, who want to fight social injustice by being activists, community organizers, and troublemakers of the best kind.
Instead of just asking what is going on, they'll ask why is it going on, and then they'll go to the next step and say, well, what can be done to change things?
I'm trying to bring about a new sense of community.
Students selected for this year-long program come from high schools across the St. Louis metropolitan area and across cultures.
Both my parents are lesbians, and I grew up in a country and a state where my parents aren't allowed to get married, and where we're not considered an actual family.
When I was in elementary school, I had a racist teacher. From that experience, I learned that life is not fair. And it's always gonna be like that. You're always gonna meet that one person that doesn't like a different type of group.
You know, I'm white, I'm straight. I live in a world where, for, a lot of those things, I'm privileged because of that.
They examine their own and each other's culture, race, and religion, attending churches, synagogues, and mosques, and they share Easter and Passover. They learn about oppression, discrimination, power, and privilege through mandatory monthly meetings and retreats. They go to each other's schools to understand what a difference a zip code makes. And from these experiences that take them outside their comfort zones, they gain the tools needed to bring about social change.
Change is not going to happen in a comfort zone. Change is dirty, is messy, is uncomfortable, and no one wants it. And you have to be able to be in that space with your allies, not alone, to bring about the huge change that we need in this country.
Cultural leadership is a commitment, not only by these students, but by their families as well. Their parents meet every 6 weeks, participating in many of the same activities as their children.
Understanding that when you really start looking at the two cultures, there's more that actually join us together than separate us.
We live in a really segregated city in many ways, and this is creating bridges, all sorts of bridges. These are the opportunities that we need to build on for a future in this city that has some hope in it.
To build those bridges, participants learn they have to break down a few barriers of their own.
I thought I was really open-minded. I think a lot of kids my age feel like they're really open-minded, and I just realized that I wasn't. I realized that I had a lot to figure out for myself just in terms of my prejudices.
I realized that I've made so many judgments that are just wrong, and it's opened my eyes to so many new wonderful things. It's just exciting. Each time I go to a program, each time I hang out with the kids, it's just a whole new world to me and understanding.
Halfway through the program, Cultural Leadership takes those lessons on the road for a 3-week journey to New York, the nation's capital, and along the trail of civil rights in the South. Cultural Leadership skips the tourist traps and instead focuses on the hallmarks of the civil rights movement and social justice struggles. They visit the Holocaust Museum in D.C., the Southern Poverty Law Center in Montgomery, Alabama, Little Rock's Central High School, and the Lorraine Motel in Memphis.
Thank you. Thank you.
They learn from local and national figures like Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, former New York City Mayor Ed Koch, Congressman John Lewis, Missouri Senator Claire McCaskill, as well as social justice advocates like Al Sharpton and Julian Bond, and religious leaders like Rabbi Brad Hirschfield from the National Jewish Center for Learning and Leadership.
Because if you already have the answers, the one thing you know for certain is it can never be different than what you already know. But if you ask great questions, you can change things.
They ask questions, take notes, and soak in these change agents' words of wisdom.
Dabney Montgomery is one of the 1,600 Tuskegee Airmen who fought in World War II. He said to me, "They who don't believe in you at first will come to you when you prove them wrong."
When the group returns to St. Louis, they disembark, carrying with them greater souvenirs than could ever fit into their luggage. Dreams of following in their new role models' footsteps.
If I can only accomplish one thing in my life, I would really love to be part of one of the achievements of a bright tomorrow.
I, Julissa Powell, in the face of injustice, will stand tall. It will not take my seat until it's beaten down.
From September to December, Cultural Leadership trains the students on how to turn those ideas into realities, teaching them community organizing, fundraising, and public speaking skills. Plus, they're introduced to local leaders who have brought change in our own community, like Sister Ebo, Rabbi Susan Talvey, and Frankie Freeman.
Welcome to St. Louis on the Air.
Students talk to the media, radio, print, and television.
What's the cultural leadership thing?
Cultural leadership is a group of African American and Jewish students from the St. Louis area. It's not.
Alums continue the mission of cultural leadership, reporting back their progress.
I've stayed really involved in community work. I want to get involved in public health to work on health disparities. And I worked in Harlem in the South Bronx all of last summer, working on the disparity in access to fresh produce and the disparity in the prevalence of obesity and diabetes in those areas.
Cultural leadership graduates and graduates of its sister program in Washington, D.C. are currently involved in the areas of criminal justice, prison reform, education, and affordable housing, just to name a few. Other organizations nationwide are taking note of this influential group, asking cultural leadership to help form similar programs in other parts of the country. To support its work, cultural leadership has received grants from the W.K. Kellogg Foundation and Steven Spielberg's Righteous Persons Foundation, as well as the respect of area advocates.
Well, I think it's a great idea. First place, I think it takes young people seriously, and that they can deal with the important issues that are facing our society and begin to think about them and begin to weigh in on them.
It is exciting when you can see young people pick up the charge and say, this is important for my community, my school, my home. I want to do this because I want to make a difference. That is going to have an impact on us, not only immediately, but in the future.
Cultural leadership, modeling legions of leaders for a brighter tomorrow.
Recognizing stereotypes, recognizing that they exist, and doing everything that we can to change people's minds to try to make the world better.
Now I understand that words can only do so much, and there is a point where you have to act. You have to take action on the issues that matter the most. Otherwise, the world is going to stay exactly the same.
I can change the world, and that the kids in this room, that the kids that I know are going to change the world with me. And I think that's the best thing about this group, is that we're doing it as a whole.